But you've got your own studio, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Tell me about that. Damn, he spotted that we've started. I've been rumbled.
Yeah, I've got a studio down in Hazelmere, which is in Surrey.
Okay.
Surrey, West Sussex border, in a kind of old 16th century barn.
Right. Wow. So it's bigger than this, is it?
It's a bit bigger than this actually. Yeah.
Lovely. What do you get up to down there these days then?
So I've just I do all manner of things down there. I mean, it started off as my kind of pre-production writing room, and then it's kind of evolved into, I've kind of, like you, people say, hey, you should do this, buy this, do that, and I've ended up where I can record everybody down there. So I've just finished a great folk album for a girl called Sumudu, Sumudu. She's a Sri Lankan singer, and she's not singing in Sri Lankan. It's kind of Eva Cassidy, Nora Jones, really folk, really straight ahead, and just kind of we're using accordion, string quartet, recorders, piano, guitar, and bass.
And do you record all these yourself, or do you get an engineer in to help you out?
I've got an engineer that works for me all the time.
Oh, right. Who's that?
A guy called Joe Harding, who's came out of ACM in Guildford. And he's great. He's been with me for about 4.5 years. Yeah. And we, I have to say, budget depending. If I'm doing a big project, then I'll hire the likes of Cameron Craig or Nathaniel Kunkel or Mark Neary. But if I'm doing stuff at home, I'm doing more independent projects, then we can do it all in house. And Joe always assists, so he's always when we're doing the bigger projects, he'll sort of come out to America with me and learn. So
do you often go out to America?
Yeah, I do quite a bit. I mean, the last year wasn't particularly busy in America, but I guess more of my work probably has been based out there.
Right. And how does work come to you then? Is that through credits on records, do you think, or do people?
Yeah, well, you know how crazy our business is. I don't think there's any set way. I think the thing that's exciting and scary is it is pretty chaotic and random, and I never kind of quite know. But I guess.
Do you have management? Do you have somebody?
I have a manager.
Yeah.
And he'll generate me some work. Some stuff will come through. There'll be sort of projects where people will just think, hey, I've got to, they'll see my name on the sting record and think, I wonder if I can get hold of him and get me through my MySpace or my website. And then I do have a profile amongst certain A&R people that I might have a relationship with, so then projects might come that way. So it's kind of, there's never a set way. And a few times, there's been 2 records that I've done. Most recently I did this Clay Aiken record, who's an American Idol winner, and he'd heard a song of mine that I'd had on this kind of Bang & Olufsen record that I put out, and or that they'd put out, I'd recorded, and I'd written this song on it, and he liked the song and said, would you come and do the song with me? So I went and did the song, and that was my in, so then I got to do the whole record, which was a great, that was a big project for Clive Davis for RCA, and it's sort of, and you just think, so he just happens to get this kind of free giveaway Bang & Olufsen record, and that's how I get a job that year, I mean,
So tell me about this Bang & Olufsen project then. What was that all about, and how did that come about?
It's fantastic. Yeah, it was a good friend of mine, a guy called Graham Taylor, used to be a marketing guy at Yamaha years and years ago, and I had a band called One Nation, and he really championed us as a band. Prior to us being signed, he kind of gave us free Yamaha gear, and we did a few demonstrations at the music fairs, and we sort of became aligned with Yamaha, and he was such a good guy. And then we got signed, and they gave us a bit of tour support, and we sort of just, there was a bit of presence with us and him. Anyway, he went and got other jobs. He went and worked for Paul Reed Smith, actually, guitars. And my band kind of broke up, and we just sort of hadn't seen each other for about 5 years. And then he ended up working for Bang & Olufsen. He was in Hong Kong, and just happened to see. In fact, this is a bizarre thing to say, but he saw my feet. I used to always not have to wear shoes.
Hello, time to get up.
That's not very cool, is it? Together, so I did 3 records for them, which was just like compilation records of music that I liked, music I'd either worked on or artists I'd worked with. Right. And that they were called Open Mind. Three albums.
So you didn't record any new material for these? Or?
For these 3 I didn't. They were all, we just kind of we had a music clearance guy, and we got them clear. And on each record there'd be a couple of Sting songs, and then some stuff I'd done with Chris Botti and Judy Zook, and then there'd be, I might have seen some amazing guitar player. Like there's this guy called Oz Noy. I don't know if you're aware of this incredible Israeli guitar player. Lived in New York, and I'd been to see him. And it was like I'm raving about Foy Vance. I was raving about this guy Oz Noy. All weird names, and So I kind of contacted him and said, "Oh, so I've got this opportunity to put out a record. You know, they're going to print out 100,000 copies. You're up for giving us a couple of your tracks." So I kind of do that with a few people as well. And then they finally said, "Well, after doing these 3 records, they said, well, how about you recording an album of original material? We'll give you a budget. You can own the record after a year, and all we want is for it to be good quality. You know, we make good quality hi-fis. You make good quality records. You know, that's all you need to. That's all you need to know." So I sort of did a very indulgent,
fantastic
album, and I basically, the way I structured it was to do co-write a different song with a different artist.
Yeah.
I only sang on one of the songs myself, and the rest of it was I wrote with Richard Marx and Curtis Stigers.
Wow.
Did a song with Sting.
You had a good budget for this, did you? Or?
It was pretty good. I mean, I had to do kind of, you know, I had to ask
Did you?
favours. I had to ask favours. I travelled all over the place. I mean, I mixed it in LA. Steve played on it, and I basically just paid everybody 150
That's
quid.
Steve here.
Yeah, Steve Williams. Yeah. Yeah, we recorded all the percussion here, and it was an absolute dream. And, you know, no A&R people,
right?
No demographic other than people that like music.
They just gave you a chunk of money and said, "Go and get on with it."
So yeah, I mean, I think it was like, you know, 75,000 quid or something, all in. You know, give us the record, and then I get to own it.
Brilliant.
So he no longer works. I said he now works for another company.
Did you have to do a surround mix or anything for them for their?
No, we didn't do it. We were talking about it. We never got around to doing that. I think they wanted it out.
Yeah, yeah. You've done some surround stuff though, haven't you? Presumably.
I have. I mean, I sort of wouldn't consider myself I sort of consider the engineers that did it with me to be the experts in it.
Yeah.
There's a couple of records. There's one record in particular. As an American trumpet player called Chris Botti.
Yes.
And we did a surround mix of this album, Night Sessions, and that actually won quite a few awards, and that was kind of definitely sort of really playing with that medium. And I think it's really exciting medium. I mean, I don't, it's too kind of static, the fact that you've got to be in this sweet spot to get it. I think that's why it hasn't caught on in a big way, but I think I love it. I mean, it's great fun. You know?
It is fun, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and all the DVDs I produced for Sting were all surround, and then we did one. We might not have done it. We did one album in surround.
Yeah, because I've got one of his albums which was done, an earlier one that was in Q Sounds. Do you remember all that stuff?
I do, yeah. Hugh Padgham was involved in that kind of pioneering there.
Yeah.
It just all of a sudden
just
went a bit weird, yeah.
You
think there's something wrong with your headphones.
Yeah, it's not completely convincing, but it was interesting. Yeah. Let's go back a bit further to the start. How did you get into music? What was the thing that got you into music in the first place? Did you have classical training, or were you brought up in a musical family?
Well, yeah, I kind of was. I was 7, and I got my first guitar. We were living in Germany. My dad was in the army, and my dad had a band.
Right.
And he, in the week, he'd be doing his square bashing. He's actually in the PT course, so he'd be doing his kind of square running.
Right.
And then the weekend he'd get the band together and play all the Air Force bases and the sergeant's messes.
So it was like a covers band, was it? Yeah.
Basically just a function band. And he loved it. And so from that age on, he would always say to me, I'm no good at this. He goes, and I earn more money at the weekend than I do all week, and I have really good fun with my mates. He said, so if you get a little bit good on the guitar, you can earn a living.
Right.
So that was my kind of mantra as I grew into my teens.
Unusual upbringing, really, in that respect, isn't it? Because most people would sort of, no, don't get into the business.
Get a second string to your bow.
And learn to be a solicitor or something,
So I just had that kind of conditioned belief that if I can make a living from making music, my dad said.
And did you have proper music lessons then as you were growing up?
So I did. I was never very good at being really structured, but I would I'd go through phases of having guitar teachers, and I did music O level, and but the real wake up for me was kind of learning to play the piano. I moved up to London at 19 and needed to make a living, so I formed my own little kind of function band, which was a duo actually. Right. And I had to play keyboards because the other guy could only play the guitar. So I kind of did a crash course in learning keyboards, and I was the singer by then anyway. And that's when I realised that I'd have to put too many hours into becoming the greatest guitar player in the world. I just kind of wasn't that bedroom kind of guy. But I could write songs on a piano. I could have a drum machine. I had my little 4-track Porter studio because I used to do backing tracks for this duo, and I thought, this is fantastic. I can just make music.
Yeah, you're obviously a natural keyboard player, because I think I'm not. I was struggling.
Oh, really?
I was a cellist originally, and I think some people just have the brain that can do that, because it's quite a coordinated thing to be able to play all those notes at the same time.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I don't consider myself very much of a virtuoso keyboard player, but I love harmony and I love finding chords, and I just love I mean, it's just, compared to the cello or the guitar, it's just a kind of nice layout for kind of writing. And also, when it's your second instrument, there's a lot more accidents happen.
Yeah.
I kind of knew how to play the guitar, and here we go with those chords. Whereas all of a sudden, I'd play D minor and go, "Wow, that sounds great."
I suppose that I suppose that's partly it's like the thing of Paul McCartney's never learned to read music because he's afraid of knowing a bit too much about the theory, isn't he? And that's kind of similar sort of way of thinking about it, I suppose, isn't it?
Well, I think most of our great songwriters and great bands are very limited as technical musicians, but they plug in with their limitation. They get the best out of their limitation.
Yeah.
Would you, Hootie Menuhin, write A Day in the Life? You probably wouldn't.
So what do you think the way the technology's gone then? Because there are less and less limitations. Obviously, the more new bits of software you get in your computer, the less there is to constrain your creativity. How do you kind of set the boundaries when you're writing?
Well, I guess I've gone through all of the kind of the waves of, no pun included with the intended with the waves technology, but where I would have kind of really got kind of lost in technology and would be beat detecting everything and getting finished tracks up before I've written a song, and so I've done all that, and at the moment my current kind of way of thinking is I'm back to a really simple writing on a guitar again, which I haven't done for years. Not programming out beats before I've actually got an idea.
Right.
And with the records that I've done in the last year, really just trying to. I care about what's happening around the other side of the mic, and that's most important. And as long the great thing about technology is it's much easier to capture recordings. And I know that there's a high level of it if you're at Abbey Road recording an orchestra or getting a great drum sound, but by and large, with a nice microphone and a good mic pre, you can get a good vocal sound. So all I care about is that the singer is kind of in a great condition to. Yeah,
because most of the records you're known for, the Sting records in particular, are polished sounding records, and obviously a lot of care and attention has gone into that, the sort of finesse of it. But presumably you leave a lot of that to your engineer, and you're concentrating more on the musical aspect.
I think so, but I would say that those Sting records, especially, well, in fact, the two studio records, Brand New Day and Sacred Love, probably was the height of me being in technology. So yes. I think that's the thing that's then meant that I've been able to go, well, look, I've spent a year making each of those records with, there being no budgetary constraints, using the best gear, the best musicians, and it's kind of, maybe there's something else to do. And when I listen to some of the records, as you do with everything you do, you sort of go, God, I wish I hadn't quantized Vinny to the loop, or I wish I hadn't moved all of the loops. Everything was possible, so we sort of did everything. And so now, this record I was saying with Summerdew, I'll kind of have an instinctive feeling when the take's happening. We sort of did all the drums, bass and piano together, and I sort of go, yeah, it's take 3, and that's the take. And if we then over the ensuing weeks we sort of hear something really bad, then we'll look to fix it from one of the other takes. But more often than not, it's fine, that take, and you build the song on it, and there might be a few little inaccuracies, but then everyone reacts to the it's just really, it's really nice.
Do you think, because it seemed, my impression, my casual observer impression, is that Sting's kind of had the same sort of change around. He's gone all beardy and just plays a bit of folk music now.
He has, exactly. we've both driven each other. And it's true. I hadn't thought of that with him sort of letting go. I think his thing is a bit. He's sort of leaving pop music behind completely, and I kind of want to work within the pop music medium. So, but
it's just a slight parallel there.
I think it's interesting. It's an interesting parallel, and we definitely worked those records, and there's some great bits on those records, and I'm very proud of them.
No doubt, yeah.
But I've learnt a new way to be.
So how did you go from being a musician in a band to being somebody who sits behind a mixing desk? How did that change come about, and what led you into the studio?
So I had a little garden shed in my terrace house in Watford, and I had my kind of little recording set up in there, and they were all the songs that I wrote that got me my first record deal in this shed. And that's kind of when I learnt about production. I was kind of just had probably a year intensive time of just being in this shed, occasionally renting it out to people for £4. I remember £4 a day. Sound like an old fart. £4 a day, and they'd come in this little non-air conditioned shed, and it really was a garden shed. And so I'd sort of subsidise what I was doing, the pub gigs, and then these people come in, and I kind of learnt to record. And then I got this record deal with MCA and IRS Records with my band One Nation. And IRS were kind of an indie label, and even though our band was sort of a bit more mainstream and a bit American, they didn't have the budgets for me to go and work with Steely Dan producers, so they said, you can produce, your demos sound great, produce it yourself.
Right.
So I had a really good engineer then, a guy called Simon Humphrey. It was doing that record, and we did lots of touring, and we sort of had a kind of little pockets of success, but that's what gave me the appetite for being in the studio. And I kind of realised that going out for a year after making a record and playing all those songs again and talking about the songs and talking about the process of the record, and kind of, it didn't really engage me, but as soon as I got back in the studio, it was like I was excited and creative.
Right.
So that's kind of when my band came to an end. I kind of thought, you know what, I want to produce. And
how did you go about achieving that? What did you do? Did you ring people up?
Luck again? No, absolute luck. A mate of mine was playing guitar with Gary Newman, a guy called Keith Beauvais, and he was offered. He'd been playing with them for ages and was a bit tired of doing the same songs and being on tour. And he'd been offered to go and tour with Tasmin Archer, who was kind of 80s. Yeah. What was her, Satellites or something? Her song?
Sleeping Satellites.
Sleeping Satellites, yeah. So he rang me up, and he knew that I just got out of my deal, and I didn't have any money, and he said, how do you fancy going up and meeting Gary and seeing if you want to be in the band? So I went up and met him and played a couple of guitar solos, and I was in. And I went and did a tour, which was fantastic fun, no responsibility, just playing guitar, taking drugs, kissing girls. It was like all of a sudden all that responsibility that I had in my band, I'm thinking, right, okay, we've got to be better, let's have a band meeting. It was sort of like, see you later, I'm off.
And getting paid probably quite well.
Yeah, getting paid, and it was great. So off the back of doing that tour, he said, would you fancy coming and make a record with me? So I went in the studio with him up at his place and made a record called Machine and Soul. It was great fun. And again, the thing, I think the reason I love producing, and maybe I'm quite good at it, is I kind of really know what it's like to be the artist and what that pressure is.
Yes.
I know it's sort of, it means so much to you, and it's your baby and it's your songs, and you are going to go out and talk about them for the next year. So of course you might be, a bit OCD about it. Whereas I can always go, look, we're just making pop music. Leave it to me. Why don't you go have a walk and let me do this, and then come and have a listen to it with fresh ears? Because I know that's kind of what the artist needs.
Right.
And I think that I really have an empathy for the pressure, and sort of how I can sort of alleviate that and sort of make it a little bit more bearable sometimes.
Yes. Well, clearly it's the personal skill, the interpersonal skills are a major part of producing, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Is that something you've learned along the way, or you're naturally a nice bloke? I presume you are. You seem like a nice chap.
It's a complete front.
Is that something you felt you've had to work on or think about though, or do you kind of?
As I've got older, I think like with anything you do, you kind of reflect on what you do, and then you go, I am actually being really empathic here, or I really am sort of, I'm making some contact here with the person and creating a safe condition for them to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, how do you approach an initial, say like somebody like Clay Aiken, your initial meeting, how do you approach that meeting? What do you talk about, and what do you say?
Clay, I remember meeting Clay. I'm sort of quite, again, I try and not do. I don't feel like I'm ever in a sales mode, because I think that if it's going to be a good relationship, it should be good with me as I am.
Yeah.
So I sort of try and get a meter for the person, and sort of just have a really kind of normal conversation. And I'm genuinely interested in what record they want to make, what they want from their producer, what they didn't like about their previous records, what they did like. So there's a kind of wealth of stuff that we can talk about.
And do you co-write with a lot of the people you work with then? Do you?
It often ends up that I'll get a co-write maybe, and there's some artists that I did an album last year with a girl called Esther Alexander, and I sort of ended up co-writing that whole record with her. And Chris Botti, I co-wrote that whole record, and then with Sting, I had that one cut with him on that first record, the opening track, 1,000 Years, and it, just by being in a kind of musical relationship with someone, if you're musical, there's something, one would hope that something might happen.
Yeah.
But I don't consider myself a kind of And I've tried doing it. I'm not good at that kind of, right, it's 10 o'clock, there's someone I haven't met before, let's write a song. Normally those songs always end up to me sounding a bit formulaic, and
Right.
I don't have an experience of turning out a really good song in that way, but I know other people are amazing at doing that.
Yeah. Do you ever feel that when if you're in a studio situation and you've been engaged as the producer, do you feel there's a boundary you've got to cross to then become the co-writer, or do you sort of just slip into it naturally and?
Yeah, I let it happen naturally. I don't. My intention is never to be a co-writer. It's probably not a good business move, but I definitely sort of respect that boundary that I'm the producer, and I'll even sort of heavily rearrange songs and get involved in, as a producer and as a musician producer, I'll get involved in changing the song quite a bit, but more often than not I'll just think, well, that's part of my role. And there's only occasionally where I think, well, I might have gone over there just accidentally by actually writing a middle section that I'll then bring up immediately with the artist and just go, look, we're working out, and this is a bit delicate, but I feel like maybe I've done a bit more than just arrange the song. And normally people are sort of quite open to, as long as you're straight with them on the day.
Yes.
Don't leave it till the following day. They say, no, you didn't do that.
Get your manager to ring up their manager.
Yeah, that's right. He wrote the whole thing. We want 50%.
I'll leave that to my manager later. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that. Now, in your own studio, you've got a TLA desk. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Is it the VTC? Is that, or is it the, yes? Which one is
What's
it?
the alternative?
I don't know.
I think it is the VTC. Yeah. So it's,
it's the biggest one they do anyway.
Yeah. That's right. It's the big one, and you know.
How long have you had that?
Long time now. I've probably had that since about 2003.
Right. And it's still.
So I think it was when it first came. Yeah, it's a really, I love the warmth of it. I only really use it as a summing mixer. I don't do any, you know, and I say that I use it for recording drums. I record drums through it, but it's just a kind of, it's a big, beautiful looking summing mixer, and I do all the kind of rest of the mix. If I do mixing at my place, it's all just done in the box.
Right.
Either in
but you bring out a few
Logic.
things up, a few faders, and sum them.
Yeah, so it just comes
in
up
a straight line and
exactly.
do a bit of that.
So it's good for recall, obviously.
Yeah. So you don't fiddle. You're not tempted to go, just put a bit of that nice EQ on.
I don't, and I probably should. I mean, I know that will be another wave that will happen, is that I'll all of a sudden start having all the faders everywhere and mixing everything and using all my keyboard.
It's a nuisance though when then somebody rings you up the next week and wants a record, isn't it?
I know.
That's the problem. Nobody does these days. But so how many things do you split? How many faders do you put it across? 16.
So I normally have, I'll normally have 16 outs from my Pro Tools, and then I might run a couple of keyboards, live. But I don't really use that very often. But basically, and I use a lot of soft synths.
Do you?
Yeah.
And this is all from Pro Tools.
So the way that I work is if I'm recording, I use Pro Tools. If it's just, if I'm doing using it like a tape recorder. Yeah. And when I'm kind of in production, arranging, playing mode myself, then I'll use Logic.
And how do you remember all the different shortcuts between the two programs? Or do you?
I don't. I'm rubbish at Pro Tools, and I'm really good at Logic.
Right.
So I'm always hitting the wrong buttons in Pro Tools and swearing and going, because it's like they couldn't. I mean, I should actually program all my Logic. I should relearn my Logic in the Pro Tools fashion, I guess.
Well, yeah, because you can't change them in Pro Tools, but you can in Logic.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be the way to go. But I mean, I'm 48. Am I about to start changing my key commands?
So have you got loads of mics and things at your studio? Have you bought loads of gear, and is that stuff that you've been sort of advised to get by people like Cameron Craig, or have you just kind of?
I've just kind of built up stuff over the years. I have the most recent purchase was I bought this. I'm going to be rubbish at the full name, but I bought a Telefunken ELM
251.
Yeah. Basically, I was working. It's the best way to be sold to me. I was working up at British Grove. Right. You've been up there?
I haven't, no, but
that's how you have to go there. Just go there, pretend you're going to hire it, and just go just to walk around. Yeah. But I was working there on a film project called Anima, which in fact that was another film project I was doing, and we recorded this vocalist in there, and they had the Montserrat Neve mic pre's. Yeah. Using this Telefunken, and it was the greatest vocal sound I'd ever heard in my life. It was just like, I couldn't believe it, and I definitely like that sort of absolutely real, hearing the lips, hearing the throat. That's kind of the sound that I love. Yeah. So I was just completely blown away, and when I found out how much the mic cost, it was like, well, I'm not about to go and buy that mic. And then I was doing my first recording session with Clay Aiken in the Hit Factory before it closed over in New York. And the engineer said, "Hey, I got some friends up at Telefunken. Do you want us to send some mics down? You can see which one works for Clay, and they'll let us use it for the session." So they delivered that as Americans do. It's just like there arrived sort of 15 different Telefunken mics, including some vintage ones that were like 30 grand. Yeah. And we put them all up in a row, and it happened to be that the mic that I chose for Clay's voice on blind testing was that one. Right. And then there was a kind of an artist deal. Yeah. So I managed to buy that mic, and so that's sort of that's my kind of vocal preference, and it seems to work with all vocalists. Really, yeah. I kind of. Unless they're not good vocalists. Yes. In which case we ask them to leave anyway.
You sing it yourself. Do you do vocals then? I know you're a very accomplished musician, but do you ever... Because you said you did a lead vocal on one of your tracks.
Yeah.
Do you ever join in on backing vocals on people's records? And sort of...
Yeah, I do. And again, it's that kind of thing that you're saying about boundaries with kind of writing. And, I definitely don't want my ego to be going, "Get me, oh yeah, I know what I could do here." So I sort of, my ambition is always to sort of not be on the record, even if I end up sketching everything at the beginning. I sort of quite like the idea of replacing myself, because as a producer you can kind of then listen to, as soon as I've played something or sung something on a track, I immediately have a different ear for it than when it's totally nothing to do with me. I have no attachment to the performance. And I did a BV recently on this Summergy record, and I just found myself kind of listening, sort of like, am I too loud? Yeah. It's like, this isn't about me. This is about her lead vocal and her song, So, but if I feel like I really have got something to contribute, then I'll say, why don't you let me have a go at doing such. I mean, I did a record for this Australian band called Atlanta More, and this guy was playing bass on it, and he was the artist. He wasn't really a bass player. And he sort of was playing bass and everything, and I just knew that the bass lines could be better on some of the songs. He was great on some of them, and so I did say, just let me have a go at doing the bass on a couple of these songs. I think it'd be really good. And I sort of, and it was the right. I wasn't doing it because I thought, I'll be better than you, mate. It was just a genuine. You got an idea. I think this will be really good. Yeah. And he loved it. It worked really well. He got me to play on more songs than I would have done.
Right. How do you approach mixing? Do you go away and let the engineer set everything up and then come in and tell them to turn it all down or up or right,
change it? That's right.
What do you do? How does it work?
I mean, it depends on who. If I'm working with Joe, who I mentioned, Joe Harding, because he's probably a bit less experienced, I'll probably come in a bit earlier and kind of sort of help him get a picture going. But if I'm working with like Cameron, and there's this guy I work with a lot in America, Nate, then I just let them get it up to where they, and let them do their thing. And then come in and have a critical ear to it. And we'll often talk about what we're trying to get out of the track. Yeah.
If you're mixing at home, and do you get stuck in yourself and have a fiddle?
Yeah.
And have you got a fader controller, or do you do it all with mouse?
I've been using a fader controller for riding vocals and stuff, and I've got really used to doing it with the mouse. So I feel like I'm on the precipice of not using the mouse, but I feel a bit embarrassed about. Yeah. I did this.
A lot of people do. Yeah.
Is there other people that are using the mouse?
Well, there's that guy Robert Orton who mixes all the Lady Gaga stuff. He sits in Psalm, doesn't use the desk, uses it all and does it all on the computer with his mouse.
It gives you a whole other focus. It does give you. If you actually
good trackball people here, I see. Like a trackball.
Yeah, so I am. I'm still kind of mousing it a bit. And in fact, I did some interview for this company, G-Tech, the drive company, and the owner of the company was doing the interview, and he was a Californian guy who did music, and he was telling me about what's that amazing controller, the high-end one, and they make high-end digital desks.
Euphonics?
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, I got 6 Euphonics controllers, I do this with my prototype. And he says, what about you? And I'm like, well, I still use the mouse, actually. I had like a single fader remote. That felt a bit old school. But yeah, I do get stuck in, and me and Joe, we've got to come up with this kind of tag system. Right. Where he'll do something for, he'll just be there for an hour doing stuff, and then I'll come in and just carry on. Right. And it's quite fun, and it makes it, and just make it fun. And when you're a bit bored doing it, just leave and let him carry on. Yeah. Do you get into vocal tuning with Melodyne or anything like that? Do you? Yeah, I do when I need to. Is that something you do yourself? Do you like to? I don't like to. No. I don't like to, and I probably shy away from if I can help it, I shy away from projects where the singer can't really sing and really needs to be tuned. I mean, for me, the best use of those is when you've got a really great vocal performance and you don't want them to re-sing the line, but you can just nudge things around. And I love Melodyne.
So you tend to just do the line that needs doing.
Yeah, and you know, and that's a good part of working with really good singers. But I did a project last year, who shall remain nameless, but one. He really wanted the sound of auto-tune.
Yeah.
So and it didn't sound right to him until he had that processing on it, because that's how all the records sound. And I was kind of quite amazed. It sort of made me think of the whole Photoshop thing, where people aren't used to seeing themselves not touched up.
Yeah.
And it's like that with vocalists, as they've grown up. You know, this guy was like 27 years old, and he's only ever heard himself auto-tune. So, and I remember he said to me, he goes, you know, and he's a really good singer, and I said, I did a comp of this vocal, and I spent a long time. It was a really great vocal. It was on a ballad. And he goes, "It sounds awful because it just sounds so wrong." He says, he goes, "Britney Spears sounds better than this." He actually said that, and that's when I twigged. Auto-tune. He wants auto-tune on his voice.
Do you get into all the graphical mode in auto-tune?
Yeah, again, with a better singer,
yeah,
you know, to be able to just draw on those bits. I mean, I must admit, I'm not very quick at that graphical
I
thing.
never worked it out, no.
And it's that tiny little window.
Yeah.
It's just kind of really not very user-friendly.
I never understand what you're supposed to do.
but
Melodyne I love, I think. But,
it's so much more...
But auto-tune I find a bit baffling. I either use it just in auto mode or not.
It's great in auto mode for demos.
Yeah.
I love that. I just kind of like
backing
put it on.
vocals or something, you just want to stick a quick rough kind of get it about right sort of thing.
But there's a guy I work with in LA called Show Business. But his total job is just to sit there, and it is with autotune, not with no one.
Right.
A lot of the kind of pop people out there won't use Melodyne.
No.
And he just sits there, tunes all day, and he's amazing at it. And he'll kind of do.
Why wouldn't they use Melodyne then?
It's because of the sound.
Yeah, they want the sound.
They want the sound of autotune. I mean, people have become accustomed to that.
Whistly, horrible.
That algorithm. It really is. It's
you can certainly hear it on records, can't you?
Yeah.
On the radio all the time.
I mean, there's one record I was listening to the other day, and I'd love to know if it's true. I love Gary Go. You know Gary Go, that artist? He had a song called Wonderful, and he's a really good singer. But it's auto-tuned out of its mind, this track. But it's the sound. You know, it sounds like a modern pop record that you expect to hear on radio.
But you think in 5-10 years' time it's going to sound like a dated pop record, isn't it? It's going to sound like one of those from the early 2000s that had loads of auto-tune.
Yeah, like we listened to records with Lynn drum machines from the 80s.
It's got to be the same. Well, that's my prediction.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So how do you discover new music? Do you surf around MySpace, or do people send you things all the time? Do you get recommendations from people you're working with, or...?
Well, I'm always looking for ways to find out. I mean, I get sent a fair bit of stuff. I'd like to say that I go around MySpace and go, wow, I love this band, but I don't do that.
There's too much music, isn't there, on there? Really?
You just, I mean, to actually hear someone really, really great after you've heard about 10 different acts is really hard. But and the thing that I am starting to do is just to go to more gigs. And I mentioned this guy Tony Moore and the Bedford and the Kashmir Club, and just go and try and see more music. And like I said, you know, meeting this singer-songwriter Foy Vance the other day, I just want to, you know, I think when you see someone do their thing, you know, you'll know whether you're moved by them and whether there's a reason to kind of try and get a relationship going.
Yeah.
So, and you know, and I feel quite lucky to have. You know, maybe last year, maybe sort of 5 or 6 really nice projects that came through my website. You know, so
right.
You know, lovely.
What would you ideally like to be doing? Do you prefer working with new artists, or do you prefer working with established people who kind of know what they're doing? Would you like to be doing? We say you'd like to be doing more film stuff.
I'd like to do a bit more film. I mean, I think I still feel ambitious about making a record that connects, and I think my ideal it would be to make a record that connects in the pop sense, in a chart sense, with a new artist. I think that was, you know, and I've loved doing my Sting stuff and working with really established people, but I think that the kind of the joy of taking something embryonic and seeing it evolve and then being successful would be kind of my dream scenario. And I think that's more difficult now than probably it used to be, because again, there's, you know, And I maybe when I say dream scenario, maybe to be realistic about it, you know, for someone to sell 5,000-10,000 records of a record that we've made at my studio that we kind of have lovingly nurtured, I think that would be my ideal thing. Subsidised by a huge record for Lady Gaga.
Yeah. Would you like to work with Lady Gaga?
No, not really. I don't think so.